So we have breaking news as I want to give you an update. It says live updates: 2 federal agents who shot Minneapolis man are placed on leave. And we're talking about the 2 people who killed Alex Pretti. So it looks like there's been some sort of action taken, although we don't know the names of the people. And from my understanding is they're going to do an internal investigation, not necessarily an independent, which they should do. And we should get more answers on this stuff. And we also have now an interview with one of the witnesses. I want you guys to hear this for yourselves and watch together.
One of the things that's shocking about the number of shots is that the last 5 shots or so are actually from a distance where he appears already lying on the ground, not moving. Do you remember that? Again, this is happening in
I mean,
5 to
honestly,
10
Alex
seconds.
being shot is the most memorable part of it. The agents are not a part of that, I think, because I watched him die. I mean, I watched him die. I remember him arching his back and his head rolling back, and it was so fast moving, but not for me. Like, when they fled, which now I see, that after the shooting, they decided to just scatter and save themselves. Watching him die, and then after, I've watched people die before in more of a calculated and planned way, like, hospice in various ways. You know what that looks like, and I knew he was gone because I watched it. And then they come over to try to perform some type of medical aid by ripping his clothes open with scissors and then maneuvering his body around like a rag doll, only to discover that it could be because they wanted to count the bullet wounds to see how many they got, like he's a deer. I watched that, and that is what it felt like they were doing, and that is part of why I was like, what are you guys doing? Why would you jostle his body around like that? You're not even doing anything to help him. But I knew he was gone.
You knew he was gone then?
I knew he was gone.
I hadn't heard that part before. And obviously this whole thing should be really sickening, and people should be demanding justice. I hadn't heard that before. They're talking about the agents and being placed on leave. We'll take a look at this.
Joined by MS Now investigative reporter Mark Santia, and it involves the border agents who were involved in the shooting, correct, of Alex Pretti?
Yeah, absolutely. This is confirmed from an official who has direct knowledge. We're told the Border Patrol agents involved in the death of Alex Pretti have been placed on paid administrative leave. The 2 agents who fired the shots, they've met with a mental health professional, we're told. That's standard operating procedure for Border Patrol for any agent involved in a fatal incident. Now, the ability to meet with a mental health professional was also offered to all agents who were involved in the death of Alex Pretti, who were there at that fatal incident. It is an automatic 3-day administrative leave, we're told. And if the agents return to work, Chris, that would be desk duty. It would not be field work. And that would continue as long as the investigation continues. So it would be desk duty, modified duty if they return to work, but no field work.
Joined by MS Now investigative reporter Mark Santia. And
Yeah, there's really not much discussion on what's going on with the investigation other than they're placed on leave. And I'll just tell you the truth here. I mean, I feel sick watching this stuff, but I don't want you to think that you're alone. I don't want you to think that other people don't care. A lot of people do care, and I want to show you some. This is Senator Warnick. He's talking about the situation.
I think even the people who voted for Donald Trump did not sign up for this. And I'm inspired by the fact that Americans all over the country are standing up and saying no. And I'm going to do everything I can as a senator to block ICE funding this week and to drag these folks before Congress and to hold them accountable for the mayhem and death that we're seeing on our streets.
I'm curious your thoughts when you hear people like Senator Johnson say this is all the fault of Democrats and Democratic policies, and he's going to do everything to ensure DHS is funded in Congress.
They're trying to tell Americans not to believe their lying eyes. We can see. And they ought to show a little decency and respect for 2 American citizens who have lost their lives But I think ordinary people are looking at this and they know in their heart of hearts that this is not right. They know it.
Yeah, and that's something I've been saying a lot too, is like any sane person can see what's happening in Minnesota or around the country. You can just see that Trump's policies are terrible. I mean, they're just shooting people in the streets, and there needs to be put a stop to it. There's different ways. So here we're talking about defund ICE. They should be immediately out of Minnesota, and actually people are working towards that. Take a look at this. This is Representative Scott Peters.
So the only remedy we have in Congress to take a federal official out of office is impeachment, and the standard is high crimes and misdemeanors. So I thought a lot about Kristi Noem and whether you could say what she's done is a high crime and misdemeanor. I've determined that you can, and that she should be impeached. What's happened in Minneapolis is people's First Amendment rights to assembly and free speech have been infringed. Their Second Amendment rights to carry a firearm, which Alex Pretti did with a permit, and their Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable seizures, because she's declared people could go into your home without a warrant. They're all being infringed. And in response to the killings of Renee Good and Alex Pretti, her response was not, well, we're going to fix this, or these were rogue agents, they were not following protocol. She basically endorsed this as part of the process. And I don't think that's acceptable. I think that is a high crime and misdemeanor. It warrants her impeachment. I hope she'll resign, or I hope that President Trump will fire her and show we're going to go a different direction. But certainly Congress, our role is to follow up on this, and the only and the appropriate mechanism we have is impeachment. The congressional delegation from San Diego, me, Juan Vargas, Mike Levin, and Sarah Jacobs, we all met at the courthouse to talk about what's going on in Minneapolis and what the response should be. I think we all agree that this kind of behavior can't continue, that ICE is way overfunded for the mission that we agree they should have, which is to secure the border and get rid of the worst criminals.
So I just want you to see other people do care and are laying out the issues that we got to deal with. Your First Amendment rights, Second Amendment rights, and your Fourth Amendment rights are being trampled on. And also, they talked to Governor Tim Walz about what's going on, and listen to what he has to say.
It's very disheartening to me to see the president say Kristi Noem's doing a great job. I'm not sure there's been anybody more incompetent or cruel that's ever served in a cabinet position than her, and this is on her. And look, we need to know who these people were. We need these guys brought back here.
Well, that's the thing. I mean,
we showed up to do an investigation, and we're not allowed onto the site.
In any normal situation, your state investigators,
the best,
would be on the scene, would be working the crime scene, would be in charge of this, or at least working with federal law enforcement.
And they've developed the trust of the people here, and what they come up with, they don't make any judgments on it. They turn it over. A grand jury will then bring indictments.
Has Tom Homan made any indication that that'd be something?
He said he would call Kash Patel about it. I asked him, I said, that's one of our demands that this happen. I also said, insult to injury. It's just like there's a cruelty that runs so deep it's hard to understand. They opened a federal investigation into Renee Good's wife, and that's still ongoing. And I said, look, you want to send some goodwill to the people of Minnesota, you need to drop that. But he indicated he would do that. I see the president say he might peel down a little bit. When you deal with the president, and I said, I'm in a situation where people say, well, you got to give him something, you got to do something, don't anger him or whatever. It's pretty hard not to be angry when your citizens are being shot. It's pretty hard to be angry when you see the amateurs out here, wreaking havoc. And there's no purpose to this. And I think what's really important to tell Americans, Minnesotans believe in law and order. Minnesotans believe that we should have border control. Minnesotans believe in due process, though. And Minnesotans want to know, if you say you're going to get the worst of the worst, quit lying about who you're arresting. Tell us who you're arresting.
And it's so frustrating to watch through this stuff. But I just want you guys to know, I mean, I've studied different representatives. You're not alone. There are people fighting back against the Trump people. I know people say, like, I mean, you wish it could be more, but this is what you have to do. You have to lay it out there, all in public. And the investigation on the two federal agents that killed Alex Pretti, and also the agent, I think it was Jonathan Ross, who killed Renee Good. There should be an investigation there. And Tim Walz brought up a good point to where, like, the Trump people that are using resources to investigate Renee Good's wife, it's absolutely ludicrous. And then you have this stuff going on, and because someone asked me about this, if you didn't know, there was an event. This was Representative Omar, and I guess someone sprayed her with something. It said unknown substance, I have the video here. I was looking at it for myself, and you guys can see it. So she's like at a town hall, and there's a guy in the front row. I think he's drunk or something like that. And then he gets up and then just sprays her with something, says stuff, and I'll just say this. I mean, this is important to talk about because in this particular political environment, I mean, it's you don't want to see it devolve into where people are bringing stuff and because you don't want to have like a wall of security in front of you to talk to your constituents. You want it to be safe, right? So because you can see people are just sitting right there. So I do take this stuff seriously. People ask me like again my opinion on this stuff. I don't know what the guy's spraying. I don't know what his intent was or whatever, but I mean, you just have to understand in this environment, he could have been holding anything, and this is why it's you need to tone the stuff down. It's frustrating because like literally we're talking about people in Minnesota getting shot, so that's why this stuff is so dangerous. I'm sure it should be obvious to you guys that like, and you have to also put in context to where there was a guy who went to 2 different homes of representatives in Minnesota and shot them. If you guys remember this, I mean, it's so the environment is just really awful. I don't know how else to say it. And then when you look at what Trump is doing, he wants to start a war with Iran. Trump warns Iran, quote, time is running out for a deal to avert U.S. military action. And then he's tweeting out about massive armada heading to Iran. It's moving quickly. Great power, enthusiasm, and purpose. It's a larger fleet. Wow, great. And I mean, this is what we're spending our resources on, basically just moving the military around back and forth from Venezuela to Iran. While if you just look at like, regular Americans' lives, people are really struggling. And, let me show you guys this because I want to show you guys how, what it sounds like when you do push back against Trump.
Let me talk a little about Iowa because I don't think they're going to say it's booming. First of all, Steve, there was 6 special election races in 2025. Yep. Democrats won 5, including flipping 3 seats. Iowa had slower GDP than most of the nation. I think it was ranked 49th. There, 2/3 of Iowans' healthcare costs are rising. 1/8 of Iowa needs to go to food pantries for food due to food insecurity. Mid-America Energy, Iowa's largest utility, thinks that already electricity and natural gas prices are raising. They're predicting another 10 to 15% this year. That's not including 200,000 Iowan families cannot even afford their electricity bills right now and are past due. So Iowans, yes, that's Trump country, but now let's add agriculture, where they don't want to bail out. They actually just want to be able to sell their soybeans and have their agriculture, but tariffs for them have been a disaster in the farmland. Disaster. That's why Trump has to bail them out. So these hardworking Americans that voted for President Trump, they're not looking for their $12 billion. They're just looking to go back to work and be able to afford their everyday life. And right now, the numbers don't lie.
Okay.
I'm really surprised that they even let this guy on Fox News. And so that's one of former Obama people. And this is what it sounds like when you have someone who knows what they're talking about, lays out the numbers and say, I mean, Americans are struggling, which is the reality of it, right?
A couple more questions.
I think the farmers, in a way, and it's going to take a little while to kick in, and the farmers stuck with me the first time, and I was right, with China, when China did a little bit of a number. We gave you $28 billion then, because it was a help because they were taken advantage of for years. We gave them 28. Now we gave them 12, sort of a minimal payment, $12 billion for the farmers. Nobody else would be able to do that. Nobody else would even think of doing that. But the tariffs are going to be phenomenal for the farmers, but they just kicked in.
I just see some nods here as you're talking.
A lot of nodding.
A couple of more questions. A couple of quick more questions, Mr. President.
It's like, what are they even talking about? I mean, Trump's policy is, okay, I'm going to piss off our trading partners so you have no market to sell to. And then I guess my strategy is just to give you a bunch of cash while you go bankrupt. I guess that's the plan. But I just, want to show you different points of view on this stuff, not just the Trumpy stuff, because I know you can get stuck on all the crazy crap that Trump says on a daily basis. But just know that there are people out there who are sane and who want to move things in the right direction. And if you're watching this and we're having a talk, you're one of them. So I do appreciate your time. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video.